Well, it was my birthday,
Rattly.
and you got me a great birthday present.
Oh, it was a fun one. You'd had your eye on it, actually.
I didn't, and I hadn't even thought, it was just something I mentioned. It wasn't a hint or anything. It just came off that way.
Oh. Well, let's find out what it is.
The simple way to open a gift is to just rip the paper.
Yeah. They used to say you have to do the dishes if it's your birthday. So yeah, guess what? You're gonna have to do the dishes.
That's okay.
That's okay. We're gonna be eating off the good china tonight anyway.
Oh my. Well, there we have it.
Uh-huh.
The early industrial looking box that Delton used.
Yep.
And it's the missing observation coach for my Colorado and Southern set. Wow. This was actually something that I've been looking for years.
Right.
I've got the set. I thought years ago I might have the entire set, but I never did have the entire set. I was missing the tail end car, the observation car. And so I've been looking for one for, I don't know, ever.
Yeah. So I was looking,
Not the drumhead.
and it's not in the box anywhere.
Right there. Well,
That's not good.
I thought that these had drum heads, and this doesn't have a drum head, but it has a light back here for a drum head, so it raises a mystery. Did it have a drum head and it fell off, or did somebody start putting a drum head on it and never finish it? I frankly don't know.
Yes, that's interesting.
But in my mind, I thought that these things came with a drum head. In fairness, there were a couple of different runs on these, so it may be that some of them did have drum heads and some of them didn't. And somebody might have bought this car and then tried retrofitting it and just never finished it.
It's pretty. It's got the most beautiful windows in I've seen.
And I've got the whole rest of the set. I just never had and I thought I had it. I thought I had an observation car.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe I did, you know me.
I've not
Because
seen
I could have,
one.
but it's not in the garage.
Okay.
So if I had it, it's one of those things like so many things that went into the vapor. So much stuff has been stolen and
Yeah.
vaporized, and who knows where it ended up.
Because I peeked in there, and I know you said it had a drum, and I didn't see one, but then I thought, I don't know if it's in the box or...
Yeah, the light is there for the drum head. But all we have to do is get the Colorado and Southern logo, round bit of plastic with a backing on it.
Yeah, we'll make
Little
one.
clear piece. And
I sure hope the wiring in it then it works and stuff.
That's going to be a fun test.
Yeah,
It's all complete underneath here.
because anytime you buy something, you know, pre-owned, used on the internet,
Yeah.
it's gonna have some weird issues.
Well, and these cars were made right toward the end of Delton's existence.
Yeah.
And one of the weirdest things about these cars is that right after Delton went out of business, and these were on the market for different paint jobs for I think 2 years, and then the company went broke. And the rumor was that they took out a large loan to make these, and they were never able to recover that, and that's what led to the bankruptcy of the company and all these things. I have no idea if any of that's true. What I do know is true is perhaps a year later, the molds to make these things turned up on eBay.
Oh, well, there you go.
On eBay, and I'm looking, I'm going, what? And it was like starting bid $40,000 or something. It's like, well,
Yeah.
there's that. But these are, I think these are back on the market. There's so much of this stuff was picked up by Aristo and Hartford and they may be on the market again. I'm just not sure.
Well, hopefully you can get this one coupled up and a new drum head for it. And I like the little pot-bellied stove in there. I can't really see it in this, but that's really cute.
And like I say, it's basically the same as the coach, the one I've got. So I've got baggage, express combine. So it's got a post office and chairs in it, then a coach, and now this is like the coach. I believe that's same interior, but actually maybe it's a luxury interior.
Yeah, it looks like a luxury. It's got the high back.
It's got a wall.
It's got the high back seats.
And then
So it's private.
it doesn't actually have the platform per se,
Yeah.
but I'm sort of tempted to put like a little fringe around
You
here.
could do that.
know,
Wouldn't be that
'cause
hard to do.
I don't know that Colorado Southern did, but do I care?
Well,
Because it just looked neat.
sure.
You could build it because you're good at that. Just a red and white striped.
Well, let's see.
Little
I'll get. Yeah, that'd be easy.
flappy, you
Just some
know,
material and unravel it.
The drumhead's going to be really easy.
Sure. I'm just disappointed it's not in there.
And it's 1/2 inch scale. And at the time these came out, everybody was saying, oh, 1/2 inch scale, that's what you want to do for fine scale. And all the fine scale stuff was coming out in 1/2 inch scale.
Wow.
And right after the demise of Delton, everyone, poof, 1/2 inch scale disappeared right along with it. So we've got a ton of 1/2 inch stuff. I mean, a ton of it.
Yeah.
Like 5 locomotives, no, 6, 7 locomotives, and probably 30 freight cars, and now 4 passenger cars.
Well, there you go.
All in 1/2 inch scale.
Well, happy birthday.
Well, thank you. So this is a later box that these came in. The earlier boxes are the one like this one came in.
Right.
Just kind of an industrial looking box with a sticker on the end of it. But then some years later, Delton developed an actual box.
A gift box, I guess.
Something that looks good in the hobby shops, because those earlier boxes are just a cardboard box with a sticker on the end of it. At any rate, here's all 4 cars. And I think they did, I know they did at least 2 different runs of these in Colorado and Southern, but I'm not really sure if they did a 3rd run, but I sort of suspect they did. Now we need to back the clock up a bit. We were doing scales and gauges, and we discussed this earlier, but let us review. So these cars were done in 1/2 inch scale, 1/24 scale. And in the earlier days of large-scale railroading, 1/2 inch was considered the fine scale. The brass engines were done that way. And the serious modelers, well, I think the assumption was that anybody that was going to do highly detailed modeling would model indoors. And the outdoor people were not so particular about the details. And in order to fit more stuff indoors, they went to this much, much smaller scale, 1/2 inch scale.
Oh, neat.
But, and I loved it. I thought 1/2 inch scale was great, but it has this problem that makes the gauge too wide. It should be 1.5 inches, and it's 1 3/4 inches. And well, I was happy to just ignore that and pretend that it was correct, even though it wasn't. The car in the middle there is a 120.5 scale, and the Europeans were using that because that makes the gauge meter. And most of the narrow gauge equipment they were modeling was meter gauge, so it made sense for them to do 120.5, and that was dubbed G gauge. And then the car to the far right is considered F scale, but a lot of people still call it G. But that's 120.3, and that makes it 100% accurate. The scaling, the gauge, everything for the American 3-foot prototype.
Well, you can see how much larger it is than the others.
And the key is, I like them both, but
Right.
boy, don't mix them in the same train.
It looks a little strange.
Now here's a picture I found in a Delton catalog showing the observation car, and notice there's no drumhead.
Right.
This was the last catalog they did, so if they had a drumhead, then they dropped it years later. But I could swear that some of these cars came with a drumhead.
It'd be neat if they did. I think it would be really nice.
Well, ours is gonna.
Well, absolutely, as well as the canopy fringe and the rest, yeah. Well, looks like you found a nice logo on the internet.
This one I think will work.
It's neat.
It needs to be, of course, cut down, resized, and dressed out to look like a drumhead. So I took it into Photoshop, and from Photoshop you can do a whole lot of reworking.
Exactly.
So the first thing I did was cut out a circle there's the size of our drum head with the logo, but I think maybe the logo's a little too big. We'll continue sizing as we go.
Right.
But that's kind of the start, and there's the finished drum head.
Oh, that looks good.
Now it's going to be up to you to figure out sizing and printing and building the plastic piece that this whole thing mounts in, and then we'll slide the light up inside it, and we should have a drum head.
That should work. We'll have to find some kind of clear plastic though, so the light shines through it.
Well, you've done that a million times.
Oh yes, it's kind of fun to do that on the internet. Just find your logo and create something from it.
Well, I'll leave this entirely up to you to figure out how to build the box here, build the disc and mount it in there.
There we go. It'd be fun to add the little canopy, the cloth fringe on the back.
I've always loved that.
It looks so neat.
I assume it's some sort of sunshade.
Probably, but I think we can do it with a little scrap of material and some innovative pinking shears.
Well, I'm going to leave that to you again because you've done this sort of thing on a lot of our models, and I am frankly clueless. So we took the car over to Garage Mahal, hooked up a Delton C16 to the string of all four, and Houston, we have a problem.
You're slipping your drivers.
It can't pull all four of these. They're just too stiff-legged for this poor little C16 to pull. It can barely pull three. So what we're going to have to do is figure out how to make these cars easier to pull, because all of our half-inch locomotives are little small locomotives like this. There's also a significant problem here. This thing's wobbling all over the place.
Oh no.
Well, this car's always wobbled all over like this. This is the express car, the baggage express car, and it just climbs up like this. And that would be a good solid indicator that the axles are not gauged correctly.
Oh.
And I've known about that, but while we're working on this, we're going to fix everything.
Well, you should.
Because we've got to free up these trucks so that they run smoother, and while we're doing that, we need to get rid of this gauging issue because that looks a mess.
Well, won't that make it derail at every switch?
Yeah, it'll want to climb over the frogs and just derail.
Right, that takes the fun right out of it.
So let's fix it.
Right.
Now, these were shipped out from Delton originally with no couplers.
Oh.
And this one's never had its couplers installed for
Wow.
whatever. So nobody ever ran it. Otherwise, they would have mounted the couplers. These came with either LGB style couplers or Delton knuckle couplers, and you chose the one you wanted and you went ahead and mounted it. But if you notice here, there are no couplers mounted. So I dug out one of our freight cars. We've got a whole bunch of these freight cars, and a lot of them have their original Delton couplers installed, and you can see how they mount on here. So this will be sort of our reference on how the coupler mounts. It's a little bit different on the freight cars than on the passenger cars, but it's the same coupler. And notice here that the hole has never had a screw in it.
Oh my goodness.
There are no thread cuts in there or anything. So clearly this has never had couplers. It's never been run.
Oh my goodness. Well, the wheels are shiny enough I could believe it.
Now on the freight cars, they have a hole right here in the bolster mount for the coupler, and there's a long plastic piece that extends back here, sort of a spring, and it plugs into this hole. But on the passenger cars, they don't have it. Not surprisingly, I have a whole drawer full of Delton trucks and couplers.
Well, that's a good thing.
Well, I converted a whole bunch of the freight cars to Katy couplers, Katy 830 couplers to be specific. And when I put these on there, that generated a whole bunch of couplers. I also switched out the wheel trucks, so, well, I just have a whole drawer full of Delton wheel trucks and couplers. So we just grab a couple of them and install them.
Well, there you go. So was that long spring thing you were talking about?
Exactly. So this is a coupler. This is all the standard Delton coupler. It has this long arm here and this thing that's supposed to go up inside a hole right here. But on the passenger cars, they don't use this. And looking closely at the trucks on the passenger cars, you can see where Delton just snipped it off.
Oh my goodness.
You can see the little nub there.
Oh, there it is.
So we're just going to snip it off and leave the exact same nub. Now this is one of the existing cars, and I wanted to see just how flexible the truck is in here, and frankly it's really stiff. So I loosened up this spring a bit on the original car, but this is the coupler I just mounted, and look how nice. It moves easily just like this one on the freight car. Now on to the wheel pickups, the electrical pickups, and they're completely different between the old cars and the one you gave me. The one you gave me has a different mount. Notice how much different. It mounts right up next to the hub, where the ones on the older cars use a spring-loaded wiper system. And this one works much, much, much better. So I'm assuming that this car is from a newer run, but because it came in an old box, I'm assuming that it was a middle run of some kind.
Okay.
Now these are the electrical pickups on the cars that I have, and I know they were the first run because I was anxious for them to come out. And as soon as they were available, I bought some. But notice that they have a spring-loaded wiper. It's much more complicated, and it drags along the back of the wheel, and that's what's creating all of this friction. Moreover, it doesn't work very well, and it makes the lights flicker.
Oh, weird.
And this is the car you gave me.
And the lights aren't flickering hardly at all.
But we need to get the friction out of those older wheel trucks and make them work better so that we can actually pull the train with a single locomotive.
That'd be neat.
We had this exact same problem on the outdoor railroad using the big Accucraft cars, because they have a similar system where they have a wiper on the back of the wheel, and that creates a lot of friction. And we solved that by lubricating that with this stuff.
Oh.
No Ox-ID. And a lot of people are using this in model railroading to put on their tracks to prevent the tracks from oxidizing and keep the tracks clean. But it's kind of slippery. And I thought, you know, I bet you could use this to lubricate the electrical contacts on your wheels, and it worked just great on the Accucraft cars. So I'm assuming it's going to work just fine here on the Deltons as well.
It should.
So I took a little glob of that and I put it inside each set of wipers here and spun the wheels around, and boy, yeah, it worked. It really freed them up.
Nice.
Now another problem that might be leading to flickering, look at these, they just, the connectors here just fall off.
Well, that'll do it.
They're barely on there. So I took some needle nose pliers and added a little tiny bit of crimp here so that these guys will stay on, because I'll bet that's some of the flickering. Now, to address the gauging issue, nobody's ever made a wheel gauge for this size, in part because the standards, there's really no standardization in these large scales, and there certainly wasn't back in the 90s. And so in order to gauge these properly, I just took my micrometer and set this to 1.75 inches, 1 3/4 inches, which is to say 45 millimeters, and just use that by setting that on the wheels to check for gauging. And most of the wheels and axles are in proper gauge. All of the ones on the car you gave me are perfect, but some of the wheels on the older cars are way out of gauge.
Oh, look at that.
I think they're probably out by 1.5 millimeters, something like, 60 thousandths of an inch or something. Look at that.
That's way off.
It's way off. Now, fortunately, where these are pressed onto the axles, with a good deal of encouragement, I was able to move them over and put them into proper gauge.
Well, it's not difficult to see why they're trying to walk up over the rail every rail crossing.
Yeah, it just totally out of gauge.
Right.
So, but an easy fix.
Right.
Took a little while because they're really pressed on here, but a little encouragement, and I was able to pull everything right into gauge. And here's another problem. Number 56 here, the lights aren't even coming on.
Oh dear.
I suspected a loose wire. Also, in the new car, one of the bulbs is clearly burned out. The one toward the rear isn't coming on at all. So bulbs are going to need to be replaced and maybe some wiring checked. The roofs are held on with these little tiny brads, these little teeny nails right here on the lettering board. And it's like, well, how am I going to get a hold of those and pull them out? But I found that my trusty wire cutters, my little dike nippers, was a way where I could get underneath the edges and easily lift the nails right out, and therefore remove the roof. The bulbs in here are a bulb I've seen around a million times. They use them in outdoor lighting, and I've never seen them used inside a train car before. But they've taken these readily available 12-volt lights, and that's what they're using in here. So I went to Amazon, and yeah, they're 50 cents each, and they're readily available. So I ordered 10 of them because 2 of these are burned out. And it turned out that the number 56 car, the reason it was in the dark was a loose wire and a burned out bulb. So that was an easy fix, and now all 3 cars are lighting up. The baggage car is not lighting up because it was never set up to have lights in it, and I'll just leave it that way, I guess, just have it a dark car. They do what Delton cars have always done. They flicker.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Huh.
And it's just the nature of the wheel pickups, but the car that you got me doesn't do that.
Huh.
But it has different wheel pickups
That's
on it.
interesting.
So they must have changed the wheel pickups. But the C16 can now pull it with the lubricated wheel trucks. You can see the observation car doesn't flicker very badly. The other 2 are flickering like a candle.
Uh-oh.
Oops. And I can't figure that.
Okay, there's something
When I
weird.
go forward, something's shorting out.
Huh.
It turns out that the connector here between the DCC unit and the tender and the locomotive is shorting out going around the curve.
Right, you can see it kind of moving, and when it does that, I think it's breaking connection.
Locomotive.
Oh, and there it goes again.
It's like the
Oh, and
locomotive
again.
doesn't like the load of the cars or something.
Oh, that's weird.
So the to-do list is find the short in the locomotive, install the 2 burned out lamps when they arrive, and then of course build the drumhead and the fringe and put that on the back car.
Well, that'll be fun to do because I think, according to the weatherman, we're going to be inside.
After
Yay.
all these years.
Yeah, the window tint's a little different on that one too.
Yeah. Clearly it was made in it's a different run. I like it more. I guess the other 3 are like good. I'm tempted to convert all of them to batteries rather
Maybe.
than the flickering.
Yeah.
And since these are just kind of a specialty item, they're just a fun thing, a half-inch scale train.
Oh, sure.
You know, it's not something I would normally run. So maybe it would be logical to convert it to batteries
Maybe.
because it'd get a lot of life out of a set of batteries.
Oh, sure. There you go.
Anyway, there it is.
The train.
A couple of little adjustments and it's a finished deal.
Oh, that's cool.
Thank you.
Oh, hey, you're welcome. Happy birthday.
Don't ask how old I am,
No,
because I ain't.
he's in
I
his
ain't
early
saying.
40s. He's in
I
his
ain't
early
saying.
40s.
Yeah. Are we ready for the blue subscribe button? Right there, the blue button. Well, we're not sure how you found this video on the internet. We hope you didn't find it boring, and we'll see you here on Tuesday with something special.
Oh, yeah.
We'll see you.
We'll see ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.